Hi, everybody. How are you all doing? Can you hear me? Perfect.
Can you hear me, Krista?
Hi. What?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. My mic wasn't working a while ago, so I've been playing with it.
Okay, perfect. Well, it's 3:30. I believe we have enough commissioners here. We have 4. Is that a quorum?
Really? We're missing a few. Hold on. Let me see who signed in online.
Diane, Jean, and Greg.
Yeah. Janine said she was sick when she called me earlier today.
Oh, I see Jean right there.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Okay.
And
That'd
Greg
be fine. So we should be fine, right, Jessica?
Okay. Yeah, yep. It looks like we should be okay.
Perfect. Well, it's 3:30. Perfect.
I will.
Okay.
Hold on
this conference will now be recorded.
Okay, you're ready.
It is 3:30. So I'm going to call this February 1st, 2022 Planning Commission meeting for the City of Port Orford to order. Commissioners, have you had a chance? Everybody, I assume, has had a chance to go through the agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda? Okay. I'm assuming everybody's had. Sorry, I forgot I was on mute. So we're on to 3, approval of the minutes. Is there any changes or additions to those minutes from the workshop or the January 4th Planning Commission meeting? Okay, do I hear a motion for approval?
Commissioner Burt, I'll motion to approve the minutes from the January 4th meeting and workshop.
Perfect. Do I have a second?
Commissioner Ross, second.
Perfect. Any discussion?
Greg just got online, just so you know, Krista.
Perfect. Thanks, Shayla. That was like in my eyes a little bit. No. I'm just kidding. Okay, so if there's no discussion, we'll just start voting. So Commissioner Burt.
Yes.
Commissioner Rossi.
Yes.
Commissioner Thielen.
This is to approve the minutes?
Yep.
Yes.
Commissioner Jesuit.
Yes.
Commissioner Reinhold.
Yes.
And Commissioner Naird is a yes. That motion passes unanimously. Okay, we are now on to agenda item number 4, comments from the public. A couple things before we get started, however. Before I go to the comments, I want to have everybody, I want to make sure that the commissioners are able to get everything in a timely fashion. So starting next month, if there's anything to be included into the packet for the Planning Commission meetings, they must be in the prior Thursday by noon or it will not make it into the packet. We're not going to do emailing at the last minute things anymore. I saw that Jessica did email something out earlier today, and I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't have read it because unless Jessica had actually pointed it out to me because I was busy at my job. And so I just think to make sure that everybody gets enough time to make sure everything is read. If things are not submitted to Jessica the Thursday prior to the meeting by noon, it will not make it into the packet. And we can try to, we won't email it out either. It just gets too wild. So the cutoff for anything in our packets is Thursday prior to the meeting by noon. As we go for comments from the public, I'd like to remind everybody that the comments need to be about items on the agenda only. If it strays to any other topic that is not on the agenda, I will ask for that comment to stop so that we can make sure that we're hearing comments about what the actual agenda items are for this meeting. Yes, Commissioner Thielen.
Yes, thank you. I sent these out at the last minute, and the reason I did, I apologize for doing that. I'll follow the Thursday rule from now on. Before we get the minutes, I'm not quite sure always how to, what format we're going to be or what is going to be looked at, just where the ball game is being played. So it's helpful for me to have some clues, one of which is to look at the minutes. And so this time I saw that there were postings from other municipalities and so forth, which was very helpful to me. And I said, I've just heard about this one from Coos Bay. I'm going to put it on there.
And I can appreciate that. I think, you can always send it to Jessica, and if she thinks, that it is applicable to what we're talking about, I think that she will always put it in. If she's not, she may email both myself and the commissioner who sent it in and goes, we're not really talking about that. Can we put it off to the side? I mean, and I think in prior meetings, it had been, the prior commission secretary had said, just talk to the day of, and I can get it in. The problem is when we started talking about building heights, there was an email sent out, I believe, at like 3:25 that had been information, and it kept being like referred to. And I'll be honest with you, I had no clue what they were talking about because I hadn't had any time to check my email. And I just think, in fairness, to make sure that we are all prepared, we need to have that piece in that deadline. But if you want to send something in, I think it'd be great to send it to Jessica, and she can say, hey, it's not on the agenda this time, or yes, it is, I'll include it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Because I think for a while, the ball game, we're not really quite sure what ballpark we may still play in. So I just think that might be the easiest way to do that. And this, it might be a while. So thank you for bringing that up, Commissioner. So do I have any comments from the public regarding the vacation rentals? Mr. Lawton.
Thank you. I'd like to respond to a few comments made at the recent Joint Planning Commission and City Council workshop, which relates to vacation rentals. The first comment was, what is the problem that we are supposed to be solving? As I sent out to the planning commissions, the essence of land use planning and zoning is to avoid problems before they occur. And by establishing zoning and planning ordinances, we ensure an orderly development of our community and ensure its economic vitality and livability. This is why so many coastal communities in Oregon today are restricting vacation rentals to protect the livability of their town. Another comment is, I don't feel comfortable telling someone what they should do with their house. Again, that is the essence of land use planning and zoning ordinances, which inherently controls what people can do with their property and places. Good examples are minimum setbacks, allowable building heights, and outdoor lighting. Another comment was, how can we restrict vacation rentals in our residential zones? Vacation rentals are lodging businesses and should not operate in a residential zone. Our ordinances do not allow restaurants, stores, gas stations, or hotels to be placed in a residential zone. So why should we allow a lodging business, which is a vacation rental, be located there? They are owned mostly by out-of-town corporate investors who own many vacation rental units. An out-of-state investor who already owns 3 vacation rentals in Portland is starting to build 5 more vacation rentals adjacent to the OSU field station. Vacation rentals are occupied by customers, not local residents living in their private homes. Local residents are the lifeblood of our community. They live, work, shop, and volunteer in our community. Vacation rentals significantly increase the demand on our water supply during our driest months. As we see, our city continues to struggle with having an adequate supply of water for our residents. Our city council has placed a moratorium on new hookups and vacation rentals to the water crisis. Our public works director said we will not resolve our water crisis by this coming summer. So we need to limit the number of vacation rentals to reduce the impact on our limited supply. Another comment was made, why are we considering the issue of affordable housing with the issue of vacation rentals? Vacation rentals are directly related to the issue and availability of affordable housing. Many long-term rentals have been converted to vacation rentals in Port Orford, and many studies throughout the country have shown that vacation rentals increase the value of housing and make housing less affordable. If an investor can earn $1,500 for a long-term rental house, they can easily make far more money if they charge $200 to $300 per night if they convert it to a vacation rental. That's a lost supply on our affordable housing. Another comment was vacation rentals help locals' economies. Yes, they do provide some income into the local economy, but it is a vast majority of the income that flows from vacation rentals never touches our local community. It flows over the internet through Airbnb and out-of-state investors. The minimal income that they do provide is by their customers who go out and eat and shop. But what they're creating is low-paying and seasonal jobs in restaurants and stores. And as we know from the research in the state of Oregon, these jobs in the service sector pay less than 50% of the average wage in Oregon. So I don't think we should overemphasize the economic impact that vacation rentals have in our local economy. They do play a role, but very small. I'd like to thank you for the time you've given me, and I'd like to thank you for your volunteer effort for our community.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. Do I have any other public comment?
I would like to speak.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. And your dedication to the city is greatly appreciated by me and many others, believe me. I understand the issue of short-term rental regulation is complex. And let me start by saying I'm not anti-short-term rental. However, unregulated short-term rentals pose problems for our community, especially now when our city faces critical water shortage and outside investors are buying up real estate, reducing long-term rental stock, as well as available permanent residences. In my neighborhood, we have short-term rentals. The house across the street was a short-term rental. And I forgot to tell you, I live at 31 Hamlet. The owner was extremely mindful of the neighbors and responsive when we had issues with her guests. On one occasion, 2 men and a woman came down to our property and wanted to use our dock. When my husband told them that it was not for public use, they became belligerent and finally left. The owner took care of the situation immediately when she was told about it, but it was not until we had already had the unpleasant experience. There are short-term rentals on the lake near my home, and during the summer, one house in particular has multiple guests with loud parties continuing into the wee hours of the morning. And on multiple occasions, in the summer, visitors set off fireworks at 1:45 and 2 in the morning, and it's not the 4th of July. Residential neighborhoods should not be event or party house locations. I believe it is imperative we get ahead of the issue and develop a well-reasoned ordinance to preserve the livability in our precious neighborhoods. Thank you again for your time today.
Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate it. Ann, you're next.
Okay. Hello, everyone. This is Ann Valais. I'm Ann Valaisis. I live at 608 Oregon Street. And I just wanted to say thank you for considering this issue today. I think it's very important. And I sent in a letter that had some ideas that I'm hoping will be helpful for you as you embark upon this task of figuring out a good ordinance for the city of Port Orford. I think Sarah and Steve have already made some great points about why it's important that we have a code. And I think the great news is since other cities are ahead of us in dealing with this challenging issue, there's lots of models that hopefully will make it, they've already done some of the groundwork. So hopefully you guys can learn from those. And anyway, I just wanted to say I support this effort and thank you very much for your public service on behalf of our community.
Thank you all very much. Is there any other public comments? Okay, if not, let's move on. We don't have the public hearing. So let's move on to agenda item number 6, the planning matters. Jessica has put in some memos from the Craig County Planner, this code from Salem, in the Clackamas County session ordinance changes, as well as some articles regarding STRs. I guess, I don't know, commissioners, I was thinking about how we want to go about this. I think one of the things we need to discuss, and Crystal, I saw your hand. Do you want to jump in real quick?
Not until you finish what you were saying. I'm sorry.
Okay. I think one of the things we need to get some information first, like what are the exact numbers of vacation rentals, which Jessica has gotten for us. Where are they located at? Are they close to each other? Are they near each other? What I'll tell you is Jessica and I had a conversation earlier today. And when people started hearing about perhaps moratoriums, they're all starting to jump in now and say, oh, we want to do that. And so I think we have to kind of start looking at things and get stuff together and research. But I don't think we want to make this a year-long commitment. We want to try to get some really good ideas that would fit us, really listening to the community. But we want to make sure that we're doing what's right, I think, for everybody. And I appreciate the public comments because there's some things that I didn't know were happening. But I also think, if we drag this out too long, perhaps some of the rental issues that are happening will not be able to be fixed in some aspects. So Jessica, do you have the addresses? I did email, we're trying to find, I think the two sections we're looking at are R1 and R2. So we're not worried about any other zones, just those two zones. Go ahead, Crystal.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to break in about R1 and R2. Actually, what we have is probably a management program that has not worked over the years because vacation rentals are not allowed in R1 and R2. And the way that is figured, they're not mentioned. And when a use is mentioned is in another zone, but not mentioned in specific zones, then it is not allowed in those zones. If it wasn't mentioned anywhere at all, it might be a different situation. But so I think that first we kind of have to decide whether we want to enforce our ordinance as it is or where it doesn't have vacation rentals allowed and just admit that they've been put in there and that maybe they're grandfathered or something like that. But the way the ordinance is written now, they are not allowed in the residential zones.
So how would we go about doing
that's something that should be discussed?
I think that's news to me. So thank you for bringing that up. So I guess the next question then would be Jessica. Mm-hmm. You and I talked. You said there was 55.
Yeah, about 50. Yeah, we're up about 55. There's 3 or 4 people have come in that I had to deny licenses to because they came in after the fact. So they're still coming in. Trust me.
And out of those 55, what would you approximate being in the R1 and R2 zones?
I would say probably about 75% of them are in R1 and R2, maybe a little bit more, but there's a good chunk of them in R1 and R2.
So I guess then the question would be for us, and I think Jessica, you started the question, do we grandfather the ones that are already in or just... I mean, in the end, it's gonna, and I hate saying it, and I do think there needs to be some growth, but this is kind of like prohibition. There's always going to be the black market.
But the thing is well, the city benefits from the TLT tax from these places. So that's the catch-22 is if we push them into that area, then we won't benefit and we won't be able to do the TLT tax or TLT grants or any of those things.
I think if we're going to allow them, at some point we have to admit that it was a mistake because otherwise people think we're changing our rules if we're not allowing more of them. But I don't know. You know, I think that people were just given building permits and then they decided to do that. And then after they decided to do that and make them into vacation rentals, they came to get a business license. I don't think most of them are signed up as home occupations or anything. A bed and breakfast could be a home occupation because they had a home person living there. And that might have been something that was allowed at that time. But there aren't very many bed and breakfasts going in right now. And you've got a whole different ballgame.
Go ahead, Commissioner Byrne.
In some of the materials that I've been reading, it looked to me like what the process was started by sending a letter out to any and all homes that were in the R1 and R2 that currently have vacation rentals to explain what the code is. And then I guess we would need to help to decide what the further action would be. If we give everyone a time frame to make a decision as to whether or not they want to stay with it. Grandfathering is fine as long as you put some stipulations on it, like it needs to be renewed every year. So it's a tough one since Crystal brings up the fact that everyone is essentially in violation, including our city, for allowing these. So I don't know. I'm suggesting that we prepare some kind of a letter and figure out what the contents of that letter would be.
So I would probably say, and this is just me saying, I would probably say that they would all want to stick to it. I don't see any of that. I think the trend that I've been seeing of people coming into City Hall, especially with building permits right now, is that yes, they're going to continue to do it. So I'm not quite sure how that would do anything 100%, but I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying just based upon the trend that I've seen, because I even had a couple that had not applied for a business license and or did not even realize they were not paying PLT tax for the last 2 years and kind of turned themselves in by calling to ask. So it's kind of interesting. I was like, oh, well, you don't have this. Oh, you don't have that. So, those type of things are the trend that I'm seeing right now, if that makes sense.
Go ahead, Shayla.
Has the city issued business licenses to those BRDs in R1 and R2 that have come forward to request them?
Yes, we have been.
So we're going to have a tough time with those business licenses, turn around and revoking them, saying we made an error. I think that creates an issue. I do think that Commissioner Burt brings up some good points in regulating those ones that are in place. And there are lots of ways to do that. You can make it so they have to reapply every year. You can make 3 complaints and your license is revoked type of situation. You can limit the number that you want in those zones and create a wait list. So there are lots of ways to now go forward and regulate how many more we allow in those zones. Or across the city, frankly, however you wish to do it. But there should be some rules put in place to manage these vacation rentals to make it a little more, I don't want to say a little more difficult, but, make sure that they're managed correctly so that they don't impede upon the neighborhood.
Go ahead, Commissioner Byrne.
Yes, Shayla, thank you for reminding me. I had written down that there could be like a rotation. If we determine the number of vacation rentals that can be allowed within the city, and I was thinking about this, there could be a a variety of qualifications that we come up with, such as the spacing in the neighborhoods. One was 300 feet, which is a little bit shorter than a football field. If they reapply annually, if there are complaints, 3 strikes or 1 strike and they're off, there could be a lottery. So if too many people apply and we only have a limited number of business licenses to issue, then they could be on that wait list. I think we're going to have to make some tough decisions like this, because if we also think about the demand on our public services, not just our water, but our police department, our fire department, all of those things increase with a higher population and guests. That's all I have to say about that.
Commissioner Thielen, do you have a comment?
Well, I was going to mention that I was going to comment on an earlier comment. I was reading the information today that had been provided to us. I was reading the Clackamas County, and I believe it was there that the courts have held up that you don't have a right to have a business in it, that you can take away a business that's not supposed to be there. You can legally do that without recourse. They don't have a right to have a business just because it's there. I just wanted to say that. It's a difficult thing because there are benefits to having STRs in town. And the fact that some of them are not legal makes us want to be friendly and accommodate them. And the law is, it's true. They are not legal. So I just want to throw that out. It's just a tiny tidbit.
Any other comments that commissioners that you can think about?
I guess I wanted to add one other thing I was thinking about was the if we start we are going to be managing these rentals at a higher level, which will probably increase the amount of workload in our city government. And I was just thinking about how we were going to pay for it. It's another issue. I was curious, what is the fee? What is the annual fee we have for a vacation rentals?
So the business licenses, it depends on your income. So it can be either $25 or $100, if I remember correctly. I'd have to double check. And that's annually. That has to be renewed annually. And that's not, it's a fiscal, so it has to be renewed in July of every year. The other thing is the 7% TLT tax that they have to pay. So they have to turn that report in quarterly to us. And then along with that report, they have to, submit their payment also for their tax return.
Okay, yes. And I was trying to parse out how the TLT tax, if any of that could be applied to administration and so forth, other than the 30% that goes into the general fund. But it said in the report on Clackamas County that they're charging $400 to $450 per unit, and that I don't believe that's the registration. That's a fee, I don't think it's the business license, but it could be. But there's a fee that they're paying, which if we were to collect that, if that's what other people are doing, we're leaving money on the table there.
So in my research, there are some other counties and cities that are collecting a higher amount based upon the business. But I'm not quite sure how that would work. Something, Shayla, we would have to, I don't know quite if that's something that we can distinguish on our business licenses and that's what we can change. I'm not quite sure. But I've seen that, yes. And it just depends, I think, on what it is and what you guys decide, what you guys want to do. And we, right now, in order to do any sort of budget rearranging, it would have to happen during the budget cycle. And yes, it would put additional strain on basically us in City Hall, but it's not something that we have to do with that daily anyway, with everyone else enforcing all the other ordinances and stuff. So it's not something that we are not used to, if that makes sense. So yeah. It is what it is. There's nothing really that we can kind of change about that.
Right.
Go ahead, Crystal.
There might be some additional jobs, I would say, that we don't really do in the city very much, because people turn in site plans and they would have to turn in some kind of a plan for a vacation rental, assuming we're going to require fire safety and other things like that. Or somebody has to come and inspect like they're doing in Coos Bay. So there could be additional expenses that we're not thinking of. It kind of depends on how we want to manage these. And also, a lot of places have had police and fire visits and things like that. And I don't know if you want a site plan visit to start with, so that you have information about the vacation rental, the parking and all that stuff. It'll all depend on how you set this up. But if you were having somebody review site plans, you're almost into a planning application of some kind. And I don't know if you want these things to come before the planning commission or if you want administrative, but either one has to be, if you're going to manage them. I think this has been the problem we haven't been managing. And so nobody noticed that this was happening, or we would have probably done something about it. But, that's another thing. To what degree are we going to manage them or require things? And if we require things, then someone has to check it out or make sure that there's a site plan or a neighborhood plan or something that shows where it is, what it is, and gets it onto the records as a vacation rental.
Crystal, when you talk about a site plan, can you be more specific? Like 3-bedroom, 2-bath, like what are you talking about?
Well, that would be kind of up to you. One thing I think that when you have a business in a residential area, you should have a record that there is a business there happening, just like you do with home occupations. And people come in and they apply for home occupations. I don't believe they go to the Planning Commission in Port Orford. We haven't done that. But they do take a certain amount of attention. People have to describe what they're doing. It all depends if there's going to be site visits or inspections, like they're doing in some of the cities where the police go out and make sure the fire goes out. Fire people go out once a year and make sure that they're complying and things like that.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
One of the cities that I was looking at, I looked at a number of the ordinances for the cities up and down the coast. One of them has a rather than having visits, it's on the application form for the business license. It's a very detailed, that you have such and such parking, that you have smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors in each bedroom, that you have, all the things that you're supposed to have, the health and safety stuff. It's a detailed list and they have to sign that they have them all. And then evidently they don't actually go and check, but they will go and occasionally check. They have the right to, the city has the right to check, and they may do spot checks, which brings me to the other piece of the Clackamas County report, that they intend for fees and what do you call it, penalties to pay for the administration of the plan. So,
Commissioner Burns. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Thielen. Sorry.
So a fee or a strong penalty, or kicking them off of the program if they're not with the program.
Commissioner Burns.
So maybe a suggestion then is to have a checklist like Commissioner Thielen was referring to in some of the other counties, and have that be part of the process for the city to hand out. And so a question for you, Jessica, is there a review process when someone applies for this, or is it issued immediately?
So it's just normal business licenses right now. So basically it's issued pretty fast, within the day or something, and they have to apply for the TLT at the same time, just so that we know that they're registered for both of the programs. There's really nothing else that's set in place that we are allowed to do at this point.
Okay. And I have another question for you, Jessica. I think you said that there are 55 currently registered. Was our last count at our last meeting 35 or 40?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's significant.
Yes,
okay.
It's significant. Like I said, I have another 5 people that have tried to turn it in, and I've had to deny because it was after the time frame. So it's just going to continue to come up.
Okay.
And I know some real estate agents, a few called me today, very upset about it, that we have put this in place. But again, it is what it is. I can't change it. So I know that there's more intent at this point.
So do you think it would be valuable to add some kind of a review process into that system? Add that?
Yeah, I think it would be. I know that there's some new rules and regulations with regards to vacation rentals and fire safety that just came out within the last 6 months. I talked to the city manager in Coos Bay, and he had told me when we were having a conversation, I'm going to say probably about 4 or 5 months ago about it. So I think, yes, some reviews would be good. I'm not quite sure how in depth you guys want to go, but I think some reviews would be good for sure. Something at least at point. Number 1, safety. Number 2, my other big thing is if they don't live here and something happens, the police of a fire need to get a hold of the owner, and we can't. That's our biggest one right now, to be honest, is that if something happens, we have no contact here. At least give us a contact within, 10 minutes of city limits or something like that, so that we can contact someone that can make an emergency decision at that point in time if it is needed.
Okay. And one more question. Sorry, one last one. If we were to have a consultant type person on an as needed basis, would that help to kind of fill the need that Crystal was referring to in a planning sort of process?
So there's a few things that we would have to go through first. I mean, the budget, number 1. Number 2, with obviously, Patty gone, a lot of things have fallen onto my plate as we're retraining some new people. So with that being said, there is an intention to kind of hand some of the planning off, once we get that other person trained and a little more up and a little more, up to speed and better on other things. So I think we could be fine with what we have right now, but it's just going to be a little bit of growing pains right now for us.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions, commissioners, for Crystal, Shayla, Jessica? Any thoughts about next steps, like what we could start looking at? I would say one of my number one priorities, I think, in looking at that is we do need to have contact within the city or close to it. That was something that I think I read in a lot of the codes, is that you have to provide a local contact. So if there are issues, and it sounds like, Jessica, there might be issues where you can't get a hold of the owners. But I mean, do we want to, what would our next steps be? Do we want to maybe come up with a list of priorities and see where everybody's priorities lie for the next meeting? And maybe we all go, hey, we want a review system where you have to have these 5 things. And then we can all come up with how do we want to go about it? I guess is my question is, what do we do next? Go ahead, Crystal.
You're on mute, Crystal.
I think one of the first things is to define what a vacation rental, what we're talking about, because there's bed and breakfast, there's Airbnbs, there's vacation rentals, and I guess we need to be specific. What is it we're allowing, and what are we not allowing?
Go ahead, Commissioner Phelan.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on that. In looking at the ordinances from Coos Bay, which I submitted today for you guys. I know it was short for you to look at. They really have fought through a lot of this stuff, and things like carbon monoxide poisonings, address numbers from the street, advertising on site, occupancy, parking requirements. All that stuff is really listed pretty clearly here in a pretty short form. But what I wanted to say was that with regard to the type of dwelling that Crystal mentions, they created another category called a homestay, which we think of, I think, as a bed and breakfast kind of. So they have homestays where someone lives in the property and they're renting out part of their home. Now, I'm wondering if maybe some of these ones that are businesses, some of this 55, some of those might even be homestays, which in Coos Bay are allowed in any zone, which makes sense to me. That if a person is hosting someone in their home, it is a business, but it's more of a home occupant, whatever that category, a home occupancy business. So I'm wondering if maybe some of those are some of them are those. And they're legal in all the areas, and then they have the vacation rental, which all of the criteria for parking and so forth apply to all of them, and they only regulate those they have put a cap on that, on the vacation rentals in the residential zones. There obviously can be as many as they want to have in commercial zones, because they are a business. So one thing we might want to do is create another category, follow that pattern and create a homestay category, which might alleviate some of the pressure.
Good, Crystal.
I think the homestay is where we started having these, and that doesn't mean they're bad or good. I'm just saying that I think that was when people started having the vacation rentals, and possibly the staff that was giving the permits didn't realize we were into another field because we didn't have any definitions. So there's another thing too, that's a homestay might include food or something, and then you have to involve the health department. And so a vacation rental, probably one of the rules would be that you don't give them food or something like that. So there's all these different nuances.
Mm-hmm. Well, just having that category may lower the number that we're dealing with of the true vacation rental in the residential neighborhoods.
Go ahead, Jessica.
So based upon just the business license forms that they have to fill out, they have to write a category of what they belong in. Short-term rentals, meaning, renting a house over 30 days and under is kind of what they've been writing on there, just so everyone knows. And I can only think of maybe one or two technical homestays at that point. Everyone else is totally a vacation rental that I know of right now. I'd have to go relook at some of the older applications, but I'm pretty sure a lot of them are 100% the whole house is going out to vacation rentals.
Okay.
How many, Jessica, would you say, based on the business licenses, and you might go, I have no idea. How many of them, those vacation rentals, have owners that still live in the Port Orford area? And how many of them have owners that are not in the Port Orford area?
I would say probably about 60 to 70% are outside of city limits or outside of Port Orford, even sometimes out of Oregon, to be honest. So I can pull it up right now. Actually, was just logging in to pull it up, the business license list. But I'm pretty sure a lot of them are outside of Port Orford.
So the owners are not, like, they may live in Coos Bay or...
I have a bunch of them that live in California. I have a bunch. I have a few people, I think, that live in Colorado, some in Texas. So we're kind of all across the board.
Okay.
I can tell you right now. It's opening up. Let me see. I have Arizona, Idaho, California, Medford, Myrtle Point, kind of all across the board. Mm-hmm.
But you would estimate that about 70% of those are vacation rentals are owned by people who do not live in the Port Orford area.
I would say about 60 to 70%. Yeah, just by me just kind of eyeballing the mailing addresses right now versus, I would say a good portion of them are. Colorado. Yeah.
I have a question for Shayla. If I may. There's been there's a lot of information that outside owners are the majority of the owners of these properties. Is there a way, Shayla, or has it been done anywhere else that to limit the ownership of an ST of a short-term rental to someone who lives in the town? I know they do it on the property, that the person has to live on the property that it's rented in a number of places. But are there any laws about that, or a person has to live in the town?
I've never seen a restriction like that, and frankly, there are a lot of legal ways around that. The person would just open up an entity to own the property and have a registered agent in the town. I've never seen that type of restriction to where you can only have a certain type of business if you live in the greater Port Orford area. I don't think that would pass constitutional muster, frankly.
Mm-hmm. I wondered about that too. I think that is an issue. Then you can have requirements that the properties be managed by a property management or have a local person as the contact, and have it be somebody who can respond within 20 minutes. I've seen things like that in ordinances for vacation rentals. I've never seen one where the owner of the vacation rental had to live in the city limits. I know, and I say that because in Hood River, the property owner has to show tax records and their driver's license in order to have a short-term rental. So, but that's for their house. That's when they're renting their basically a homestay. So, which would be different. Mm-hmm. Is there any way to channel the money through the town?
Sure, if you had to have a local property management company,
to either live
business for a local person to be a local property manager. You know, those funds would then stay within the town through that company.
And the property management would mean cleaning the towels and trimming the trees and doing all that.
Right. They would have to maintain the property. They would have to be the local contact person for the property. If there was garbage flying around, they would be the person who would be called. You know, a lot of people have businesses being property management companies off of both long-term and short-term rentals.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
I mean, when I've gone on vacation various places, I've rented condos through property management companies. You don't rent directly from the owners.
Mm-hmm.
Good, Commissioner Reinhold.
So I'm hearing that it could be difficult to do what Commissioner Thielen is asking or suggesting, but I think it's important that we look into it as much as we can, because that would pretty much solve most of this issue if we could somehow make it so that you need to live within 15 miles of, like, prove that you're here most of the year and this is your permanent residence to be able to have a vacation rental. Like that's why we're being exploited, and that's where all of these problems kind of are coming from, is because we're being treated as this like investment opportunity from people who have no stake in our town whatsoever. They may never even have like come here. They just, yeah. I would love to look as much into that possibility as possible.
So I think maybe where we're at is maybe just the next steps would be, let's maybe look at priorities, listen to some more public comment. Jessica, what do you think?
We can do that. What I can do is I can, work together on that map that you and I talked about real quick, do something like that. But then I think maybe too, we should put together, some sort of application packet. If this is really the way that we are going, I think an application packet would be a good start too, with regards to possibly good neighbor guidelines, so that we don't have the issues that I know that Sarah, voiced that she had with her neighbors. Because I think those are big concerns that I do know I get complaints about. And I know, obviously, a contact local is a good thing too. I understand where Bailey and Greg are coming from, but, I'm not quite sure how feasible, easy that'll be. But at least this will kind of start the ball rolling with options. And then, whatever we need to change to allow them or limit them within residential services. But I think those few little things, at least the application packet, is a big thing.
Go ahead, Commissioner Burnt.
Could we perhaps think in terms of what we can do right now, such as you just suggested, Jessica, a packet of information for people, and down the road, like within a year, create ordinances, guidelines, somebody called it good neighbor guidelines, something to that effect that really very clearly defines what the different types of vacation rentals are, and if we need to be fair to people who are already in this business, give them a year to for changes to happen. And I don't want to define what those changes might be, but I think it's still in discussion time frame. but I think that we have a lot of good examples, and we can use that as a template and design something that is agreeable to our community, to our city, to our city services. All of those things need to be considered. So in summary, what I'm suggesting is we do something short term, that we plan for something to go into place within a year.
Go ahead, Jessica.
The biggest thing so we have to renew business license. So anyone who has the vacation rentals that have a business license have to renew at the end of June, beginning of July. So if we have some sort of packet together, something by then at least, that might be a good start to give to them when they go for their renewal. That's an option too. I was just thinking about.
Shayla.
So within that application package, that would have nothing to do necessarily with zoning and more of a business license type approval or denial is parking spaces. The requirement of you have to have so many parking spaces for your guests, and also have occupancy limits. If you have a 2-bedroom, you can only have 4 guests. And things like that really kind of squish the party house atmosphere of a vacation rental. I don't know if that's an issue in Port Orford or not, but it's an issue, other places that big groups rent these and et cetera, et cetera. But, you can place some limits on the use through the business license application.
Commissioner Thielen?
Yeah, there are a lot. I think there are a lot of details that we can work out to help administer and make this a better program. But I think we need to look head on at the difficult issue. The difficult issue is, are we going to cap the number? Are we going to reduce the number to a number that we feel is better? Or are we going to let it be wide open? I think that's the issue. That's the big issue. That's the hard issue. And like, for example, with Coos Bay, they basically chose 75 as the number for that town of vacation rentals based on the number of housing units. That's 1% of their housing units. And they felt that was what it should be. So I did some numbers, looked up our housing units here. We're at over 6% of our housing units are rentals. And whether we want to have that or whether we don't want to have that, I'm not saying one way or another what we should have, but we need to. This is the essential question. Do we want to let this basically illegal activity expand, contract, stay the same? We want to make it work for us. I'd like to look at that question.
So I do think at this point, though, we got to figure out next steps. Is the question? I mean, I agree with you, Commissioner Thielen, but I don't know, like, how do we look at that piece then and decide where to go? I mean, because you could have people say, "Oh yeah, it's great, it's getting this money." You can have people say it doesn't, but I think before there has to be something in place, like Shayla said. I mean, we could look at that question. That question could go on for a while, but if we're getting something ready to go in June, do we do 2-person occupancy per bedroom? I think you have to look at the short term and long term. What do we do to stopgap? And then what do we do to make it a sustainable program is what I'm kind of thinking. Because at this point, I'm still trying to figure out what is the next thing we do. Right. Because we could do theoretical, or we could do, I don't know. That's where I'm kind of wondering, where do we go next?
Well, Commissioner Nair, I believe that the occupancy. I mean, I've looked at the regulations up and down the coast. the occupancy things are all kind of rubber stamp. Once you start looking at them, it's 2+, it's 2 for each bedroom, it's one parking spot for every 2 people. And not necessarily that's exactly what it is, because I don't have all those details, but they all look pretty much the same. That's going to be the easy part. What I think we need to do is to involve the community, see what the community wants.
Well, and that was what my hope was, is for that we get a lot of community support and a lot of community coming into even this meeting, because I don't necessarily disagree with you. But my question becomes is, if we have 6% of the occupancy and we want to, of our town being vacation rentals, okay, so we go back to 1%, who do we kick off?
Right.
I mean, that's kind of where I'm at.
Yes.
But is that fair? Is that fair then? Is that then Jessica goes through and says the first 30 who got these business licenses with the longest, they're the ones, and the rest of you, is that fair to them then? That's my question, is how do you go from 6 to 1? Go ahead, Crystal.
Well, I think somebody called on me, but I don't even know how we determine whether we want to just act like this is allowed, or whether we want to say no more right now. I mean, it's easy to do because it's not allowed in the zoning. And then have time to put together our information. I mean, personally, I think that we either need to put it in our code as an allowed use, or we need to quit doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Jessica.
Otherwise, we can't explain to the public why we're just sitting on it and making rules, because we don't have it allowed yet. And then we're going to have to fix our code. And by the time we fix our code, we need to do notices to everybody. And I mean, if we're allowing it, it's an interesting position that we're in.
Crystal, I don't know. So the last city council meeting, maybe before that, just so you know, we are no longer issuing business licenses to vacation rentals. So that stopped. So they're not allowed to legally do anything until we have something in place. So
well, I think that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was decided upon at the last city council meeting, or maybe the one before it. I'm not quite sure. I'd have to look at my notes.
Yes, I agree. I agree, Crystal. That is the essence there. That we don't have any more until we decide what we're going to do.
See, that's what Coos Bay did, and it made people really mad because they were allowing these. And they said they'd always had it, but they really didn't always have it. It was kind of like what we're going through. People had kind of just started doing it when the rules all of a sudden came up, and then there was no notice or anything. And all of a sudden we hear that things are being developed in our neighborhood and that the rules didn't change. But we look back at the zoning ordinance and the rules did change. So it kind of causes distress.
Sheila, you had your hand up at one point.
I was just going to reiterate that the council issued a moratorium on VRDs, so they're not issuing business licenses for vacation rentals at this point. I'd have to look into what to do about the ones that we've already allowed. If it's purely a business license issue and they have to re-up those every year, it seems to me that we could put rules in place now in regards to the issuing those business licenses. And you might find that some of these people who already have a vacation rental wouldn't qualify the next time around, Maybe they don't have enough parking spots. Maybe they don't have smoke detectors in all the rooms, They may not qualify the next time around and your number might be reduced. You could also, through the business license, put a cap in place. Just say, we're only going to allow X number of BRDs, business licenses, to be issued each year. And that's not necessarily a zoning code issue. It's more of a business license regulation because it wouldn't matter what zone they were in.
Any other thoughts, commissioners? Go ahead, Commissioner Reinhold.
Can we say that we've put the moratorium on, right? And so we did that, great. We can grandfather in the vacation rentals that currently exist for the next year while we figure out what to do. And then I think a lottery system would be great. And if you don't, and as well as having to, make sure that you have your smoke alarms and the adequate amount of blah, blah, blah. And if you don't, you get kicked off and someone else gets a chance. And maybe it's a 5-year permit those are details, but would a year just give us time to figure it out while we keep the moratorium in place?
I think talking about a year is I think a year is a really long time in this scene. I think we should gather as much information and act as fast as we can with the will of the community.
To reduce the amount that we currently have, you want to do that?
I'm just saying to manage the situation. That we need to be. Yeah, a year is a long time. To say a year is a long time.
If you currently have a vacation rental, then we're not going to say in 2 weeks you're kicked out, figure out a new plan. You have a year where you can go, okay, well, this is my business and I can figure out something else. But knowing that within a year, the rules might change and you might no longer have that vacation rental.
Or in the period of time it takes for the planning commission and the city council to act with whatever ordinances that they need to. Yeah.
Good, Commissioner Burns.
Jessica did mention that it's fiscal year. So it's June, July timeframe. Also, question, the moratorium on business licenses, was there a deadline? I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure it was at least 12 months, and so we could retract it if we needed to sooner.
Oh,
okay. Good. Well, that's good to know because that gives us a little more room to work on all of this.
I do like Shayla's suggestion, the business license way, where we say in order to get the business license, here's the thing. Because you may find that people will find out, sorry, I'm at home, that people will say, I don't have enough parking space, so therefore my business license wouldn't. And that would just give us some time because I think, for me, one of the things I really am trying to get out of the conversation is what are our next steps? We need that short-term piece. We have the moratorium, but Jessica said that the business licenses are up as of June, right, Jessica? So can we come up with a checklist that we can all agree with and send to council that says, here's the business license in order, we believe, in order to get the business license, here are the 5 or 10 things that they have to have as a vacation rental. So yes, they have the rubber stamp on the occupancy, but how many of them actually put 4 people in a bedroom versus 2? You know what I mean? Because I do know of vacation rentals that have a queen bed plus bunk beds. So let's just have that out. You can only, if you have a 2-bedroom house, you can only have 2 people per bedroom plus 1 extra. So you get 5 people versus some of them might be putting 10 in. If you have 2 bedrooms, you have to have, you only get a maximum of 2 parking spots or whatever. So I think I like the business ID license way because I think that will get some of the issues right away. I mean, we have 6 months. Well, we have 5 months to get that kind of moving. So I don't know. I'm looking for next steps. Like, what do we want to go next? What's the concrete next for next meeting? Go ahead, Commissioner Byrne.
Are you looking for volunteers to put together a list?
Would love for volunteers. I've seen some. I've seen some really great ones. I just think, let's come with ideas. I appreciate Sarah's personal comments where people were trying to use her dock and they couldn't get they couldn't get a hold of people, things like that. I think those are real life issues that we need to hear about. The party houses, that they're shoving 20 people in a 4-bedroom house and you're getting fireworks shot off at 1:45 in the morning. You know what I mean? I think, what are some of those concretes that we can look at? Because I think when we throw those out, we'll get more comments about, yeah, that would work, or that wouldn't work, those type of things. I just wonder what our next steps would be and going from there. What, Commissioner Thielen?
I would be happy to look up that the place where the town that I saw the self-reporting a very extensive list of these kinds of things and report on that. Make a report back to you guys on that, which ties in, which is basically the business license. It would be that's an administrative kind of thing.
I'll go, Commissioner Byrne.
So I was just going to ask if it would be acceptable for Commissioner Thielen and I to work together on something like this.
Jessica, Shayla, would that do anything with the open meeting laws if they work kind of together and talk about?
That's fine. You're not creating a quorum.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So you've got volunteers to come up with a list.
I appreciate it. And if anybody can think of anything that maybe that you heard, if a community member came up and said, here's a story, maybe email that right to Jessica and she can email it to Pamela and Greg to kind of keep thought processes in. I don't know. So if we go I'm throwing it out for Jessica, Crystal, and Sheila, if we go a business license way, does that do anything with the changing of the ordinance? Like, will we have to go through processes to put it in the ordinance, public hearings, so on and so forth?
The council would need to do a public hearing on the ordinance, but it wouldn't go through a land use process unless you divided it zone by zone. If it's just a business license regulation across the board and it applies to all zones, it seems to me it could go through the process of adoption of a regular ordinance. But when you start singling it out and saying these things are going to be allowed in this zone, they're not going to be allowed in this zone, and here's the regulations, that's a land use process, and you would have to go through the full hearing at the Planning Commission and the council. Looks like Crystal wants to chime in though, so she can prove me wrong. I'm okay with that.
Well, it's more of a question, Shayla. When we have a use that is allowed in certain zones and not not permitted in other ones, and we just leave it like that, I think we should be doing something different because it's not honest. I mean, it doesn't tell what we actually permit, because we have zones that permit lodging, and they're like the Battle Rock and the 4C, and I'm maybe another one, but the other ones do not. And so at some point we have to shore that up, I think.
We do, and I hadn't factored that into my response. So, Crystal, does our code have the language that says that if something is allowed one place and silent in another, that it's deemed not allowed in that other zone?
I don't know. I can look. I know it's the typical way that zoning ordinances are handled, and we have said that on many occasions.
Right.
Whether it's actually in there, I don't know. I doubt it.
I'm reading the code right now, so I can send an email out as soon as I finish it if I don't get it before we're done.
Does it say that?
I'm reading it right now. Hold on.
I don't think it says that.
I don't think it does either. I haven't seen it yet because
But if we started changing that, we've also got another problem, because there's a lot of things that we don't permit because they're not listed in the code, but they're listed in other places.
So long term, it does seem to me that we would have to shore up our code. If we're going to allow the vacation rentals to continue in the residential zones, we're going to probably want to go through the hearing process to shore up our code in that respect. I don't know the history of VRDs in Port Orford as to how they've really been handled in the past. I think there's probably been vacation rentals scattered across the residential areas for a long time. I just don't think it was considered until now when it's becoming an issue.
Now, how does precedent fit into? So, for example, if you want to shore it up, but we've been allowing it anyways, doesn't that kind of? I don't know.
And it could come out to say that we don't allow them in residential zones, that those that have been established and allowed vacation business licenses are allowed to stay, but there will be no more because our code doesn't allow it.
I found the words.
Oh, good. So it is in there.
Well, it says, this is 1708.030, authorization of similar uses. And it's a little long, but I'm going to read it. The city council may permit in a particular zone a use not listed in this title, provided the use is of the same general type as the uses permitted by this title. However, this section does not authorize the inclusion in a zone where it is not listed of a use specifically listed in another zone, or which is of the same general type and is similar to a use specifically listed in another zone.
Okay.
So it's pretty clear.
Yes.
Okay, so any thoughts of what we should do? Go ahead, Commissioner Thielen.
I think another thing we should look at is our fees. We're going to need some administrative money too in the future. And if we're charging $100 or if it's a need-based thing, fee, and other municipalities are charging $400 to $450 or more, I think we need to find out what it may be less attractive to try to make money in a residential zone if you have to pay a big fee. That's something worth looking at, I think.
Kayla, would that have to go through the budget commit? Like, how would that happen with changing fees? Because I know we changed the fees recently for business licenses. We increased them a few years ago.
Mm-hmm. I think that your fees have to go through council to approve.
That's what I was thinking.
Yes. I want to say that your fees have to be commensurate with the task at hand. They can't be the type of fees that are not relative to what's being requested, as far as administrative costs.
Right. Okay.
Well, aren't we creating some huge administrative costs by managing these VRs in the way that they need to be managed?
I don't know what the cost would be with the management. You go through and if you create a checklist, somebody's got to make sure that that's done. There would probably be inspection fees if you wanted to go that route, and maybe some code enforcement type fees if you wanted to go that route. It would just be a matter of looking into what the actual cost of that was. And I don't have a way of knowing that.
So cost-based.
Go ahead, Commissioner Byrne.
Jessica, did you mention that there's a fee for the business license, and then there is the TLT tax, 7% quarterly? But we currently do not charge another fee just to have a vacation rental.
That is correct.
Okay. So, Commissioner Thielen, are you suggesting that other counties require a tax, a quarterly tax, a business license, and an additional fee?
I don't know the answer to that. I was just looking for that. I wish I had actually found the page. I think I'm close to the pages, but I'm paying so much attention to the meeting I can't I can't focus on where it is.
So in Clackamas County, they do a registration fee is what it is. And that registration fee, according to this, can be transferred. So it's a one-time basically fee from what I've gathered. So it's a one-time fee for that, house or resident, address. It says that it can be transferred in here. I've read obviously a bunch of times. So it's a registration fee. So it's a renewal, registration, termination, renewal, or a fee. It also, I think this is on page 44, 45, and 46 of the packet that I give you guys. It talks about the fees that they provide, the registration fees.
So that's something to think about as well, because some jurisdictions don't allow a vacation rental to transfer between owners. It's specific to the applicant who pulls the license. If the property sells or is transferred to somebody else in some fashion, the license is not there. That they have to reapply for it. And
yeah, I think
know at that point in time whether or not your slot's still available.
Yeah, I think it was Coos Bay. I think it was. There's someone else I read that if the house is sold and it still wants to become a short-term rental, they have like 30 days or something to reapply to be able to keep their spot, if that makes sense from what I was reading. But that was the only thing that I could think of, just to give them time to get through what they needed to. Obviously, that takes time.
Go ahead, Crystal.
Also, all the ones that are going through zoning usually have fees. And a lot of them are going through zoning. Because in a lot of them, the requirements for distancing and all those things are in the zoning ordinance.
So if we were to have a distance requirement, that would have to go through zoning and not through.
Well, I'm not going that far. I'm not saying it would have to. I'm just saying that a lot of them do, because they have a setup for things like applications and fees and site plans and things like that.
Well, I did find that the page is page 41. And this says financial implications. What is the funding source? A registration fee that is sufficient to cover administrative and enforcement costs needs to be adopted. As noted earlier, to fully recover costs associated with administration and enforcement of this new program, a fee of $800 to $900 for a 2-year registration would be needed. Now, I don't know if they're just saying that's what we would have to have or that's what they were going to do. But they were talking about a 2-year registration period. Then you would have to re-register. Anyway, that's just a detail.
Okay, any other comments? Any other discussion? Jessica, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking that the business license portion, I think doing the packet, like, Shayla had suggested, is kind of the first good step. And then we can kind of keep going from there. At least we'll have something in place at that point for when business licenses are up and ready for renewed. And like she said, it may weed stuff out. It may weed items out. It may weed people out at that time. And so that would be a big plus at that point, possibly. We don't know. But still obviously, just have these people as a grandfathered and not issue new ones, but keep the ones that we have right now.
Go ahead, Crystal.
I notice later in the Clackamas County, when it's page 40 of the packet, it does have discussion considerations for fees, which might be something that Jessica would want to look at. They're a little bit maybe more than what we're talking about, developing a web page, creating public outreach and educational materials. But I do think that some of those things might be important, because if you're going to have a checklist, you also need to describe it somehow, what it is you're expecting. You can't put parking spaces on a checklist without saying whether they have to measure them or have turnaround area. I mean, there's going to be all those questions. I mean, you could, but I'm just saying you want to kind of close the loop.
Okay, so I think maybe our next steps are Commissioner Burton, Commissioner Thielen, if you guys want to work together and maybe have that checklist and bring that to the meeting, kind of as we move forward with the business license piece, you know, and we can go over it, we can listen to public comment, and then I think, you know, decide and then move forward with kind of going through the other pieces. So maybe it's, you know, then we start looking at the code and things like that. Is that agreeable to everybody?
Krista, I have a question.
Yes.
Should we, I mean, I know that there's public hearings that are not land use public hearings. Like the city probably has a rule about how you do a public hearing that is separate from the way a land use public hearing is done, which is basically they invite people to come and speak. Should we be doing something like that so that you can get all the ideas from the public?
Well, I mean, to me, I kind of thought that's what public comment is about. I mean, they have time to come and talk to us. But I also think ideas, it's really hard for, you know, like I said, I really appreciated Sarah's because she gave us some concrete ideas. And I think, you know, and I appreciate Steve's conversation and his comments, but to say we limit them because of water, but what does that mean? How do we limit because of the water usage? Is that we limit the occupancy? You know, I mean, we could do I don't know, Shayla, Jessica, jump in. We could do a public hearing, but to me, that's what the public comments are about at these meetings, is to come and talk.
We haven't really invited them, is what I'm saying, because we're taking them from knowledgeable people that know that we're doing this, but there's probably a lot of people who aren't really knowing that right now.
Well, I mean, we could, how would we invite them? Do we, you know, go ahead, Jessica.
Just a
suggestion. I agree. No, I'm just wondering. I mean, what's that thought process look like?
So with the recent, I think, utility bills in January, we sent out an extra form for everyone to give updated contact information that we needed, just so that we had, you know, new phone numbers and stuff like that. We could do some sort of, you know, thing, you know, a mailing type of thing, and just say, you know, if you have, you know, please provide, or, you know, let us know if you want, you know, and say, you know, and they can turn it back into us at City Hall, and we can just keep a stack of it and give it to Greg and Pamela. I mean, we have options of reaching out to everyone. It's just a matter of what you guys think would be the best.
Well, my question to you, Jessica, because I know the city's bogged down, and, you know, what would be feasible for your staff to do?
That we can,
you know, because to me, here's a public forum in which people can come.
Mm-hmm.
You know, do we send a flyer out that says the next planning meeting? You know, but I don't want to say, here, Jessica, here's another 10 hours of work. Go. You know what I mean?
What? Come on. You're no fun.
I know what it's like to get that extra piece.
So I'm trying to remember. So when I was dealing with the risk mitigation girl, Monica, she did a really good survey online, actually. And so there's a different ways that we can do that. I'm trying to remember the name of it off the top of my head. I don't. But there's different things. And all I did is basically send out links. And I sent out the links, you know, via Facebook, you know, to anyone else, and then sent them out to as many people as I could. So we could do something like that if we wanted to. And then we would get all the feedback and all that information. That's an easy thing to handle. Like I said, if we want to add in a flyer, we can easily do that too. Thank you, Survey Monkey. There you go. Thank you. And then, or we can add, like, you know, a flyer in there, and we can just turn it in, and we can just pack, you know, put a pile of it for someone to, you know, Pamela or Greg or someone to come pick up once a week or once every 2 weeks, whenever they want to. So it doesn't, those type of things, and, you know, we can, you know, try to work it in, definitely, for sure. Those are things that are easy enough for us.
Okay, so commissioners, what what would be our best route to get more information from the community? Would it be a survey? What do you think we could do to do that? And then what would be a timely manner for us? Sorry.
I like the idea of a survey. I think you're trying to be inclusive of everyone. And whether it's done electronically, online, or mailed, I think you have to give both options, because you're not going to have email addresses for everyone, but you will have a physical address for anyone who has a water account with the city, right? Mm-hmm. You could stuff them in the PO boxes of everyone.
We hit people up when they come into City Hall. I just handed them out, hey, turn this in while you're waiting. So I was really kind of forceful with that too.
So I think it's in the fairness avenue. I think that a survey can accomplish a lot of things and make people feel like they are being included. Not that many people attend these meetings. So, we know the people that attend regularly and give comments. Thank goodness for them. Because they're sharing their knowledge. But we need to have a broader spectrum, I think.
Commissioner Thielen, go ahead. I saw your hand up.
Yeah, it's really tough with the COVID thing and not having in-person meetings. I'm sure there would have been a number of people here today at this meeting if it had been in person. People enjoyed coming together and talking in meetings, about issues they care about. How about an article in the newspaper? Who's a writer that likes to write about what's going on? And then the other idea was, like some kind of public meeting, but we can't have a public meeting. It skipped my mind. I got sidetracked with the newspaper.
Go ahead, Crystal.
Well, I think the survey should be really simple, and not really have places where people they go into it and then pretty soon it's not saying what they want to say, so they just stop like I do every time. But that kind of leaves an open-ended survey where you would have 3 questions, like the best thing about vacation rentals are, or even a first question, I understand what a vacation rental is, or how it's defined, which may be different than a homestay or something. I mean, you don't even know we don't know where people are or what they're thinking. And then the best thing and the worst thing, or my concern or something like that, so that you only ask them a little short thing, but you get a reading of what people are thinking.
Okay, so I think the next question is, who's writing the survey? Jessica, do you maybe you and I can kind of do it real quick this week?
Yeah, we can do that. That's not a problem. As long as everyone's okay with that, I'm good with that.
Yeah. Is everybody okay with me working with Jessica? In between Jessica's and I'll call you on the way to Pacific, Jessica.
Sounds good. Make sure I'm ready, bright and early we're ready and late at night.
It's only text messages, so we got to hurry up each way. So
okay, sounds good. Hey, we're good at texting at 10:30 at night too. So
any other comments, questions? Go ahead, Commissioner Thielen.
I thought of my other venue. There's a venue that I would not want to post as a commissioner on, but there's the North County News and Views. It is a pretty popular Facebook page, if there was a non-commissioner that wanted to post on it and gather some information, that would be wonderful.
Jessica, does the city have a Facebook page?
No, we don't. Unfortunately, I do not. And I know this is going to sound shocked. Do not have the time to manage that. Because that in itself, to me, kind of seems like the full-time job.
How about a planning commission Facebook page?
Well, I mean, what if we posted the link on the city website? And then that way, if a citizen wanted to say, hey, here's a survey, here's the link, that would work as well.
Yeah, I can post it on the website. That's not a problem. I can send that to Jesse. That's easy to do.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Burnt.
Jessica, is there a contact me kind of spot on the website? Usually there is.
Yeah, there is. There is, and I think it has like myself, and it has Dina listed, it has Caitlin listed. So there are different sections. So it just depends on exactly kind of what you're going for and who it goes to.
Okay, great.
Go ahead, Commissioner Jesuit.
This goes back to the time. If we do it open-ended, the amount of time we're asking whoever is the recipient of all this information is totally going to be overwhelming, and by definition, it's going to be non-inclusive at times. If you had it on the website, whereas a survey is going to be easier to deal with and kind of stick to the facts type of thing. Here's the tally of the survey questions. What I'm hearing is there's really no one place that's perfect.
And I think when we look at the questions, I think when Jessica and I talk, I think a tally is kind of good. I do agree, because I think if you do an open-ended, you would really have to do some analyzation of the data. But I think you have to use multiple different avenues. You can do with the utility bills, a link on the website, come to City Hall. I just think if we have the multiple different avenues, but I think the types of questions asked are important, to not do so open-ended that you have 100,000 different answers, that maybe we can get a theme that runs through it. That's a quick and easy theme. Is that kind of what you're saying, Jean? Okay. Any other comments? Go ahead, Commissioner Thielen.
I have, of course, one more. Another thing you might put on the survey is the dates of these meetings, and say, we want you to come. We want your feedback. We want your input at the meetings also. Just something that somebody might want to tune into the meeting and speak to us.
The dates and times of all of the planning, parks, and city council meetings are listed on the website. It says the first Tuesday of the month at this time. And so, just kind of as an FYI, it's been listed there for a while from what I've understood. But they are up there listed. And then when the packets go out, obviously a lot of stuff is sent out and announced on the website too.
I was just thinking maybe one line on your survey saying, or common comment at the first Monday of the first Tuesday of the month.
Any other comments, discussion? Hold on. I lost my agenda. I was looking through meetings for a minute. Okay, so I think we have a good next step. Am I correct on that? We all kind of know what our next steps for the next meeting are. So Pamela and Greg, if you could get your kind of ideas to Jessica that Thursday before so we can get them out to the commissioners and look, that would be much appreciated. Anything else that while we're on for vacation rentals? I found it. Okay. So we're going to move on to other business. So announcements to city planner comments. Go ahead, Crystal. You good?
I don't have any comments. Thank you.
Okay, planning commissioner comments. Does any planning commissioner have comments that they want to put on record? Go ahead, Commissioner Thielen. You're on mute,
Greg. We can't hear you.
Sorry. I really appreciate folks coming and speaking at the meetings. It's really important to me to hear what the community says. Thank you.
Any other planning commission comments? Okay, any public considerations? Go ahead, Steve, go ahead.
Thank you, Krista. Thank you, Planning Commission. I appreciate your concern for fairness for the existing vacation rentals, but do understand this is a $15 billion industry, and that 5-unit development that's going to be developed, a 5-unit vacation rental, is going to earn during the summer when it's fully rented $11,000 to $13,000 per week, $40,000 to $50,000 per month. So I think we need to think about fairness, and I'm concerned about the equity for the existing residents in the community. Due to poor planning or poor management, as Crystal says, and some people might say negligence by the city, you've allowed non-compliant vacation rental businesses to be located in residential neighborhoods. Where are you considering residents who live in a residential zone and the negative impact that non-compliant businesses have on their livability? And are you actually going to say you're going to continue to allow these non-compliant businesses to exist? I think that Greg has raised some good issues with Clackamas, and I believe Lincoln County has just recently passed a measure to eliminate vacation rentals in residential areas. So I really think you need to consider our residents, the people who live here, the people who shop and volunteer, and not worry always about the out-of-state investors or out-of-town investors. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Sarah, do you want to give a comment?
Yes, just briefly. I was struck by the fact that the vacation rentals are illegal at this time in our residential neighborhoods. And I think it would behoove the commission to hear from more of the residents in the neighborhoods about it. And I'm a bit concerned that we're headed down the path of just saying it's okay because I've been here and we've been doing it. There's probably ways we can reduce the number slowly, not pass on. A house doesn't get a permit and then it stays with the house. It just, if someone has a permit now and they sell the house, then they can't get a permit. There's other ways we can address this issue. And I really want to thank you for your time.
Thanks, Sarah. Go ahead, Ann.
Yeah, I would like to echo some of the things that Steve and Sarah had to say. I feel like you guys made a really good start on thinking about how to make vacation rentals better. But you did not, the fact that we've learned today that they're illegal in residential zones, I think is huge. You may recall from the workshop, the city council members specifically asked you to look at restricting them in residential zones because of the idea that residential zones are not places for businesses, they're places for residents. So I think what we learned today, that the residential zones don't even allow them, is actually a really important and big thing. And I think that you need to get to the bottom of that before continuing to allow more business licenses in the residential zones. And there are many examples of cities that do restrict them in residential zones, that don't have them at all in residential zones. And also that there are cities that have residence requirements. and which I mentioned in my letter. And so I think rather than having this idea of like, oh, we can just make them better, let's not worry about it, I kind of get the feeling that was the tone of the comment today. And I think from the workshop and from what I've heard from previous city council meetings that, and you can say the city council does represent more residents and what city council has been hearing, that if affordable housing is actually the most important thing we have to address. That is something I don't feel like I heard any of us addressing in this meeting today. So the supply, the number of these that we're going to have is crucial for dealing with the affordable housing issue. And, Steve, I think has said this before, because of outside investors, a big problem is if we're having an unlimited number of these, that's one of the reasons our prices in our town keep going up and up and up, because people can make so much money. And so, it's just a matter of we have to think about that issue from a policy perspective and then figure out how to make it as fair as we can.